Well, welcome, Janelle Gill,
Thank you.
pianist. We're so pleased to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Janelle is here performing with Rochelle Rice this evening and Dante Pope at our inaugural concert of the Music from Poplar Hill series. And Janelle has a burgeoning, blossoming career in the DC area. What are some of your current projects, Janelle?
Well, since the shutdown, everything is sort of slowed down. So I've done a few things here and there, working with Rochelle. I've also been working along with Michael Bowie. There's a new group that we sort of started called Satya, and just composing music on my own at home, working on some things at home, and
Staying creative during the shutdown. And
yeah.
do you have projects in mind for afterwards? Things that are on hold at the moment?
Not at the current moment. No, I don't. I mean, I was supposed to be doing some performances for the DC Jazz Festival, but they had to sort of scale that down a bit to a virtual platform. So unfortunately, the performances that I was participating in weren't didn't make a part of it, make that virtual piece. But
It's been a challenging time for all musicians.
yeah, it's been really challenging.
I was very interested to read in your biography that you started off as a classical pianist. You were classically trained. When did you make the transition to jazz, and what was the story?
Well, it was a kind of abrupt and gradual. I was sort of forced to play some jazz in middle school during a workshop where a composer came to our school and wrote a piece for our orchestra in which I was playing violin. But he needed a pianist, and the principal told him that I played the piano. So, of course, I had to go over to the piano and play the jazz on the piano, which I, at the time, had no interest in. But he ended up mentoring me and sending me recordings of music, Art Tatum and Oscar Peterson, McCoy Tyner, and really great music. And it really piqued my interest. And I went on to study at Duke Ellington School of the Arts, which is an art school in DC. And yeah, and that's where it was more developed. The interest in jazz music was developed more there. Of course, we had to continue our European classical studies. So that repertoire was still being built all the way through college. But I was performing or working playing jazz music more so. Yeah.
I was loving listening to you warming up because you have such range in your playing, such a dynamic range and range of touch.
Thank
Do you
you.
feel that the classical training informs your jazz performing, or is it really two separate languages for you?
Well, I mean, there's definitely there's separate language, but there's also some overlapping. And the part of my European classical training that really informs my playing is really the sort of the technical aspects.
Sure.
And also my ear training, because I started off with the Suzuki method. So I, from a very early age, engaged my ear very deeply. So yeah, there was definitely an influence there, technically speaking and harmonically speaking as well.
Interesting.
Because that was my first introduction to music,
Right.
Yeah. Basic sort of sonata form with the sort of earlier Clementi and Mozart sonatas and sonatinas, and moving on up to Beethoven sonatas and the Bach preludes. And
Really covered the repertoire then.
yeah, I mean, once you get to, I mean, in the beginning, the first sort of 10 years or so, it was just the Suzuki method with some supplemental pieces that my piano teacher and I both would sort of choose. But once I got to high school, it was what Dr. Min wanted me to learn. And then when I got to college, what Dr. Jackson wanted me to learn, and he actually thought that I needed to go back. I had been playing pieces that were more complicated than I should have been playing.
So he wanted you to fill in some gaps.
Oh, yeah. He says, you need to go back and learn more Beethoven sonatas, Janelle. Later for this Cacciatorian and so, so I had to kind of go back and really learn some forms and learned more sort of finger independence with some Bach preludes and fugues and the inventions and sinfonia.
Yes, that's real classical training.
Yeah,
It certainly is. It seems to me that Suzuki at its best really gives children a lot of freedom at the piano, freedom from inhibition. Have you found that to be true? And has that translated, has that kind of fed your jazz improvisation at all?
Not necessarily so, because I actually, when I first was presented with the task of improvising in the jazz setting, it was very scary.
Was it?
Yeah, because I didn't know what to do. I thought,
where are the notes?
What if I play a wrong note? It can be very scary. And if you play a wrong note, then what happens?
Right.
But you just have to take that first step. You have to make the mistakes in order to figure out what works,
Well, and of course, as Miles Davis once said,
There are no wrong, yeah.
there are no wrong notes.
Yeah, once you find comfort in the context of it all, then everything is relative. Everything can be related to consonants. Dissonance can very easily turn into consonants and vice versa. So.
Well, I very much enjoyed during rehearsal today hearing the way you and Rochelle converse with each other musically and interact with each other. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing the performance tonight. Hearing some more of that.
Thank you so much again for having us.
Thank you so much for being here. It's just thrilled to have you.